Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Iran's oil exports reach 5-year high, with China as top buyer. Exclusive: Xi promised Biden China wouldn't interfere in 2024 election. The city that tells you everything about China's problems. China, U.S. to cooperate on fentanyl in first progress since 2019. Republicans press forward with bipartisan tax bill. Iran's oil exports reach 5-year high, with China as top buyer. Nikkei Asia. Iran's exports of crude oil increased by roughly 50% to a 5-year high of about 1.29 million barrels per day in 2023, according to data from European research firm CLER. The vast majority of these exports went to China, with 90% of Iran's crude oil exports being sent to the country. This has helped to prevent a sharp increase in oil prices triggered by geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East, such as the war between Hamas and Israel and attacks by Houthi militants in Yemen on vessels in the Red Sea. Exclusive: Xi promised Biden China wouldn't interfere in 2024 election. CNN. China has assured the U.S. it will not interfere in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, according to two people familiar with the matter. The assurance came from Chinese leader Xi Jinping to U.S. President Joe Biden during a meeting in California in November 2021. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi repeated the assurance to U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at a meeting in Bangkok last weekend. While China has historically played a more passive role in trying to influence U.S. elections than Russia, intelligence officials have said it has become more aggressive in targeting U.S. voters and political candidates. The city that tells you everything about China's problems. The Sydney Morning Herald. The city of Hefei in central China has become a model for the country's economic growth and industrial policies, particularly in the electric vehicle (EV) manufacturing sector. However, the success of Hefei's EV industry has led to overcapacity and heavy losses due to numerous cities subsidizing EV factories. The Hefei model involves using government money to buy shares in struggling manufacturers and arranging loans with attractive interest rates to finance new factories. The strategy has transformed Hefei's economy by nurturing technology manufacturers and attracting suppliers and customers to relocate to the city. However, Hefei is now facing a decline in real estate, which has devastated the finances of millions of families and small businesses. The city's dependence on construction has led to a decline in new apartment sales and a decrease in sales of land leases, which typically cover half of Hefei's municipal spending. The lack of funding has affected the ability of debt-laden real estate developers to finance new projects and has caused small businesses to suffer. Furthermore, some local workers lack the skills to compete for jobs in the increasingly automated EV industry. China, U.S. to cooperate on fentanyl in first progress since 2019. Nikkei Asia. The U.S. and China have launched a joint counter-narcotics working group, marking the first sign of cooperation between the two nations in tackling the spread of fentanyl since late 2019. Fentanyl is a highly addictive synthetic opioid, with the U.S. claiming that China is the primary source of precursor chemicals that are then synthesized into the drug by cartels in Mexico. China denies this. The launch of the working group follows a summit in November 2021, where U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping agreed to work together to curb fentanyl production and export. Republicans press forward with bipartisan tax bill. Washington Post. House Republicans are pressing ahead with a bipartisan tax package despite outspoken opposition from lawmakers across the ideological spectrum. The bill would extend 3 business tax breaks in exchange for expanding the child tax credit. Some Republicans are opposing the bill because it increases welfare payments, which they say is the last thing that should be done when the country has a $34 trillion debt and a $2 trillion deficit that's growing. Some Democrats are pressing their party to hold out for a better deal. The bill would pay for extending the business tax breaks and the expanded child tax credit by ending the employee retention tax credit, a pandemic-era incentive for businesses to keep workers on their payrolls. Why America's enemies are rooting for another Trump versus Biden election. Hill. The U.S. is entering a dangerous period as it faces mounting external threats from Russia, China, North Korea, Iran and their associated proxies and terrorist groups, according to Joseph Bosco, who served as China Country Director for the Secretary of Defense from 2005 to 2006. He warns that America needs a commander-in-chief that keeps its adversaries uncomfortable and restrained in order to prevent strategic miscalculation, citing former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley as a strong candidate for the role. Tired of hostile Washington, China courts Indiana and Minnesota. Washington Post. Chinese provincial and city leaders are making efforts to forge ties with mayors and other local American leaders, which could give Beijing leverage against a hostile Washington. The United States' relationship with China is at its worst since the two countries officially recognized each other over 45 years ago. In an effort to stop the relationship deteriorating further, Chinese leader Xi Jinping is attempting to activate supporters and advocates for the US-China relationship. Chinese officials are seizing opportunities to forge ties with mayors and other local American leaders, the kinds of connections that give Beijing leverage against an increasingly hostile government in Washington. US-China rivalry, where does Thailand stand? Deutsche Welle. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi held a surprise meeting in Bangkok, Thailand, to discuss a range of geopolitical issues. The meeting highlights Thailand's diplomatic potential and its ability to remain neutral amid tensions between the U.S. and China. Thailand's policy of not taking sides has allowed it to enjoy close ties with both superpowers and to act as a meeting point for discussions. The meeting can also be seen as Washington's endorsement of Thailand's new Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin, who was not the favorite to take power after last year's elections. Democracy should not be decided by an authoritarian regime, Taiwan's foreign minister pushes back at Beijing's criticism of incoming president. ABC. Taiwan's foreign minister, Joseph Wu, has dismissed Beijing's warning that the election of Taiwanese President William Lai would endanger the status quo between China and Taiwan. Wu stated that Taiwan does not accept that China has jurisdiction over it, as it is a democratically elected country. He added that Lai is a moderate who wants to maintain the status quo. Wu also accused China of pressuring other countries to reduce their contacts and friendship with Taiwan, and urged Australia to play a more significant role in ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. Spycraft and Statecraft. Foreign Affairs. CIA Director William J. Burns wrote an article for Foreign Affairs outlining the challenges and priorities facing the CIA in the current era of geopolitical competition and technological advancements. Burns emphasized the need for the CIA to adapt and transform its approach to intelligence to keep pace with the rapidly changing world. He highlighted the importance of blending traditional human intelligence with emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence and data analysis. Burns also discussed the CIA's focus on China and Russia, the two principal rivals of the United States, and the agency's efforts to increase resources for intelligence collection and analysis on China. He also mentioned the importance of preserving Western aid for Ukraine to counter Russian aggression and send a message of U.S. resolve to China. Lastly, Burns emphasized the significance of deepening intelligence partnerships with other countries and the role of intelligence diplomacy in supporting U.S. diplomatic and policy efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, 6 doctors here, bringing you the latest news from around the world. Today, we have a mix of stories, ranging from Iran's oil exports to China, China's promise not to interfere in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, and the challenges faced by the city of Hefei in China. We also have news on U.S.-China cooperation on tackling the spread of fentanyl, the progress of a bipartisan tax bill in the U.S., and China's efforts to forge ties with mayors and local American leaders. Furthermore, we will discuss the U.S.-China rivalry from Thailand's perspective, Taiwan's pushback against Beijing's criticism, and CIA Director William J. Burns' insights on spycraft and statecraft. Let's dive into the analysis, shall we? First, the news of Iran's oil exports reaching a 5-year high with China as the top buyer is significant. This increase in exports has helped prevent a sharp increase in oil prices amidst geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East. It highlights China's reliance on Iranian oil and their ability to shape global energy markets. Next, we have the exclusive report that China has promised not to interfere in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. While China has historically played a more passive role in influencing U.S. elections compared to Russia, recent intelligence suggests its aggression has grown. This assurance from Chinese leader Xi Jinping to President Joe Biden is a positive step towards ensuring fair and transparent elections. Moving on to the city of Hefei in China, we see the consequences of its success in the electric vehicle manufacturing sector. The overcapacity and heavy losses resulting from numerous cities subsidizing EV factories illustrate the challenges of managing rapid industrial growth. It also highlights the need for a balanced approach to economic development and diversification. In a surprising development, the US and China have launched a joint counter-narcotics working group to tackle the spread of fentanyl. This marks the first sign of cooperation between the two nations on this issue since 2019. Fentanyl has been a major concern for the U.S., with China being seen as the primary source of precursor chemicals. This joint effort is a positive step towards addressing the opioid crisis. Shifting gears to the U.S., House Republicans are pushing forward with a bipartisan tax package, despite opposition from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. The bill aims to extend business tax breaks in exchange for expanding the child tax credit. This highlights the ongoing debates and challenges in finding common ground on fiscal policies. Now, let's talk about the article highlighting why America's enemies are rooting for another Trump versus Biden election. The author emphasizes the need for a strong commander-in-chief who can keep adversaries on their toes and prevent strategic miscalculations. It's an interesting perspective on the importance of leadership in international relations. In a fascinating move, Chinese provincial and city leaders are reaching out to mayors and other local American leaders, forging ties that could give Beijing leverage against a hostile Washington. This highlights China's efforts to maintain relationships on various levels, potentially influencing U.S.-China dynamics beyond the federal government. Thailand's diplomatic potential and ability to remain neutral amidst U.S.-China tensions are showcased in the surprise meeting between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Bangkok. Thailand's policy of not taking sides has allowed it to act as a meeting point for discussions, demonstrating its diplomatic significance. Taiwan's foreign minister's dismissal of Beijing's warning regarding the election of Taiwanese President William Lai is a bold statement. It underscores Taiwan's commitment to democracy and maintaining the status quo. The call for Australia to play a more prominent role in ensuring peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region highlights the importance of international support for Taiwan. Lastly, CIA Director William J. Burns' article highlights the challenges faced by the agency in the current era of geopolitical competition and technological advancements. The need to adapt and blend traditional intelligence methods with emerging technologies is crucial. The focus on China and Russia, deepening intelligence partnerships, and supporting U.S. diplomatic efforts underscores the significance of intelligence in shaping global affairs. And there you have it, my friends. A summary and analysis of today's news. Now, it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any questions or insights to share? Let's spark a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.